I'm walking to the camera because. Okay, I'm good. I'm in focus. All right, here we go. All right, so everyone, welcome to lesson 2 of JLI's combating. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. You've got the wrong camera going. You've got the back camera, not the front camera.
Well, yeah. Well, you don't see me. Hold on. I'm standing.
You're off to the side.
Yeah, so I should be using the back camera. You see me now?
No.
No, I'm not. Oh, you don't see me now. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So now you see me.
Yes.
Oh,
okay, good. No, so I'm using the back cameras for the phone because the back camera for the phone is a lot better than the front camera. This way it will record hopefully better quality. Everyone can see me in all my beauty and glory. My mother can be proud. I wasn't meant as a joke.
You can move it a little bit closer so we can see the little freckles on your nose.
Oh, here you go. Now we're at the edge. Now we're at the edge of the table. Oh, Larry, behave yourself. This is Glad Minutes' first time in a class. We got to break them in slowly. Okay, now it's officially 7:30. Let us go. Okay, so this is a very, very interesting class. The concept of outsmarting anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is kind of like a keyword, and it opens up a lot of sore subjects for a lot of Jewish people. How do we do it? It's in the news. So I sent out the link to class 1. I want to thank the rabbi from California, Rabbi Zimmerman, and covering for me because last week I wasn't feeling too well. I didn't want to push off the beginning of the class, the start of the class, because then we're running into Hanukkah and we want to finish on time.
I thought it was Arizona.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Arizona. I'm from New York. There's New York, and then there's the rest of the country. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, you're right. It is Arizona. So class number 1 spoke about the concept that, there's a lot of stress about anti-Semitism, what's going to be. And we have to know, number 1, that we have to have confidence that Jewish people are not going anywhere. They haven't been going anywhere for 3,500 years. We're as strong and we're stronger today than we were in the past. And you have to know that the Jewish people are part of Hashem's divine plan, his greater plan. And just like Hashem is eternal, the Jewish people are eternal. So there's really no reason to get all excited. Our job is to be who we're supposed to be and to take the proper steps in the forces through the regular vessels of nature and then let Hashem do his thing. So that was a small recap of lesson 1. So it was sort of about how we deal with ourselves. Now let's take a look on the outside. How do we deal with the people we call anti-Semites? Can we push the hate away? And maybe we could understand a little bit the reasons behind anti-Semitism. And maybe during the middle of the class, we'll change the term. Instead of calling it anti-Semitism, we can call it something else. And then we can walk away feeling a lot different. How do we combat it? And how do we talk about it? And what's our response to it when it comes up? So we'll begin on page, where is it? My page is a little bit different. The gray box. What's the beginning of page 48? I think it is. Ancient, absurd, and contradictory. Yes?
Yeah, 48.
Page 48. Okay. So anti-Semitism has been called the oldest hate, stretching back thousands of years. However, as the following text demonstrate, the claims leveled against Jews were always absurd and often contradictory. This has remained true to this day. And I use a lot of my good anti-Semites joke about and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but there's one I used already, but it's a good one. There's this Jewish guy sitting on the bench reading the newspaper in Germany, and the German guy goes to him and says, all the fault of the whole world is because of the Jews. And the Jew says, and don't forget also the bicyclist. So the bicyclist? Yeah, the bicyclist. Why the bicyclist? I don't know. Why the Jews? Right? So that's been sort of our response. But one thing we know for sure, there's 20th century examples of hatred towards the Jews in 18th century, 17th century. You can go back. As long as there's been Jews, there's been hatred towards the Jews. The hatred is ancient. The claim, the reason why, because they can't just come out and say, I hate you because no reason. There has to be a reason. But when they're confronted with that reason, the reason has always been ridiculous. It's always been absurd. And many times, one anti-Semite, one hater says one thing, another hater says another thing. So, to the first half of the class, we'll talk about these reasons. A lot of people think that who were the first. Hey, I have it in person. Michael J, you the man. At least now I'm not talking to a machine, I'm talking to a person. All right.
I didn't know it was going to be in person. I would have come tonight.
If you read your emails, you don't read your emails. Glenn is reading emails. It's unbelievable, right?
I didn't get the email.
You dog ate your homework. Yeah. Anyway,
The dog ate it.
Oh, exactly. Oh, I haven't even. I forgot. I'm a little rusty. I haven't even I forgot about the slideshow behind me. So first of all, before we continue, this is a promo for the next class, which is going to be all about Jewish meditation. No, how come my thing's not working? So that's going to be where are we? We're in November. That's going to be starting in February. Okay, here we go. No apologies. Anti-Semitism, ancient, absurd. Here we go. Contradictory. Okay, who invented anti-Semitism? No, anyone who want to chime in? Who invented anti-Semitism? Jews. Nice one, Michael J. So most people, the thing that comes to mind, most of us live, been around, in the United States. We grow up in a Judeo-Christian country, and we've all learned about things in history books. So we say the Christians invented anti-Semitism, but the truth of the matter is that's not true. Anti-Semitism predates Christianity way before. I often say Christianity hasn't invented anything. They didn't even invent anti-Semitism. So we're in text number 1. We're going to read from a writings of a man named Tacitus. Tacitus was a historian, lived in the 1st century of the Common Era. He was a Roman historian, and he writes about the Roman conquest of the city of Jerusalem, and then he takes a break to discuss the Jews. But based on his predecessors and what he writes, you can see the things that he says. And then in text number 2, we're going to read a text from a man named Josephus Flavius. You know who Josephus Flavius was? Anybody?
Wasn't he the one who wrote the account of Masada?
Yes. So his original name was Matasio Cohen. He lived in the Galilee, and he writes that he was fighting against the Romans. That when the Romans conquered, he joined with the Romans. He took the name of Flavius. So that was the family name of the emperor or first general, then Emperor Vespasian. And he became a historian. He writes the famous book, The Wars of the Jews. A lot of what we know about the destruction of Jerusalem, etc., is about the Wars of the Jews. And then he wrote another book called Antiquities of the Jews, which is the story from creation to the times of the Romans. And then he has a third book, and this book is called Appian. Now, this Appian was a book. It was a refutation, because there was a book out there by a Egyptian philosopher, a Hellenized Egyptian philosopher, who we don't have the book, but we have Josephus's response to the book. And in this book by this Egyptian philosopher, he's basically all the things that the Germans wrote, everything basically that all those claims, he writes in it, and he responds back. So we'll read. So text number 1 is from Tacitus. Text number 2 is from Josephus. Okay. So see the exercise. Read text 1 and 2. As you read, underline the phrases. I mean, if you know anything about the common anti-Semitic lines, so underline the phrases that you know feed into the well-known anti-Semitic stereotypes and prejudices. Summarize your findings in the box that follow the text. If I had Jeopardy music, I'd play it in the background. But go take a minute or two or three or four or five, and read the text 1 or text 2. If anyone has any questions while you're reading, please don't. But Ira, while you're reading, you can jump in the car and come. You'll notice that there's a famous idolatry in text number 1, that the idol of Ammon. That they found hieroglyphics about this idol. I don't know if you have this text number 2 yet, but you'll see in the second paragraph, text number 2, a man by the name of Antiochus Epiphanes. That's the Antiochus, the villain, the antagonist from the story of Hanukkah. He was the governor / king / general who was in charge of the land of Israel during the time of Hanukkah, and the Jewish people rebelled. So while you're reading, just to put things into historical context, I know text number 1 is I mean, they're both written at the same time, but text number 2 is referring to a time earlier. The Greeks ruled Israel before the Romans. So with the time of the story of Hanukkah is about 200 years before the destruction of the temple. The Romans kind of came into Israel. They were actually invited by the Jews about 100 years before the destruction. But here he's responding. Josephus is responding to in Apion to things made well beforehand. By the way, this is water. Right? This is not. It's not water.
I'm very glad you clarified that, Rabbi.
I don't know, because before I made a joke about going into having a shot of my office. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you guys, Let me know when you guys are done. Michael J, you done? Want to do? Shall we? Can I continue? Michael just shaking his head. I can't see you, so you need you guys to speak up. You need more time. Elizabeth, you're muted, and Minna, you're muted. So you have to unmute yourself. Let me see here. Silence is agreement. Yes, exactly. Let me see here. If
Another minute.
okay. Oh, there you go. Oops. Okay, so let's go through while you're finishing up. Finishing up number two. I'll start going through number one. So here's here's some of the basic arguments that we see till today, or we see, the famous protocols of Zion or whatever it is. We see it always. Let me click on the screen to make sure they will walk through me. Okay, so in Tacitus, we see how the biggest problem, there was a plague in Egypt, and who was societal problem blamed on? Where are we? The societal problem is based on the Jews. In the famous Nazi newspaper, the Stromer, they wrote, the Jews are misfortune. And even till today, the whole COVID-19, there were some articles published to find that it's Israel's fault, it's the Jews' fault. Nothing new. So societal problems based on the Jews. Then another thing he says that the Jews are lazy, right? And they don't work. And they think Jews are parasites. They just live off the hard work of others. So we're going to reference the story of Purim a lot in this course, because the story of Purim is like the prototypical story of anti-Semitism, a guy trying to wipe out all the Jews. So there's two stories of anti-Semitism in the Torah. There's Pharaoh enslaving the Jews, and then there's the story of Purim. So last week we discussed the story of Purim. Here we're going to discuss again. But Haman came to Achashverosh and said the Jewish people don't work. What a lot of people don't realize is that in ancient Persian time they had an 8-day week, because they believe in Durantheism or Zoroastrianism. They believe in God of light and dark. So you have to be an equal balance between the days. They had an 8-day week. So the Jews, every time Shabbos was a different day. So Haman went to Achashverosh. The Jewish people don't work. Today is Shabbos. Today is Pesach. It's in Martin Luther King's book. Martin Luther King, who made the Protestant Reformation. So like all revolutionaries, he was sure the Jews would join his revolution, because he hated the church, and he knew the Jews hated the church, because in the 1500s, the Christians were killing Jews, right, left, and center. They came to the Jews, and the Jews said, "Thank you, but no, thank you." So if you look at, it's interesting when Muhammad did the same thing. You know that Muhammad's earlier writings are very kind to the Jews. When his philosophy and his religion was rejected by the Jews, he became an avid anti-Semite. So Martin Luther is the same thing. In the beginning, he writes nice things. Then at the end, when he's rejected, he writes terrible things. So he writes, I commend putting a flail, axe, or hoe into the hands of a young, strong Jew and Jewess and letting them earn their bread. For it is not fitting that they should let us accursed goyim, he used the word goyim, toil in the sweat of our faces while they, the holy people, idle away their time behind their stove. I have a longer text. Then obviously he says that the Jewish people rejected their God, rejected the gods of of society, right? In Christian Europe, in the Muslims, back then the Romans and the Greeks. This is a common problem. Then you have the other thing: Jews are all rich, and we have all the money, or we're obsessed with money and gold. And also another thing is they rip off non-Jews. It's interesting that in ancient times, the church believed that you're not allowed to charge interest, but without interest, there's no loans. With no loans, there's no economy. So what did they do? So they forced the Jews to be in the loaning business, and the church went and said the Jews have to pay, I think, 25 or 30% interest. And in order for the Jew to make some money, because otherwise, right, they charge like 40%. And then they went and turned around to the Jews and said, "Oh, you guys care about money." right? You guys are killing us. Martin Luther, sorry, writes this also. I advise that usury should be prohibited to them, and all cash and treasure of silver and gold be taken from them. Right? That's another comment. Also, they hate the non-Jews because they're different. And then the old famous one, we saw it. They killed the non-Jew, the Gentiles, in sadistic way as part of ritual worship. Everyone knows the blood libel. The first blood libel, I think, was in the 1100s in England. His boy William of Norwich went missing. They accused the Jews in the beginning. It didn't take off because they said there was no proof. But then it gathered so much steam. The Jews were exiled from Egypt. Exiled from England. Sorry, exiled from England. There was no Jews in England for 400 years until they were led back, and then they were kicked out again. The point of the matter is, no matter what happens, it's always a Jew's fault. You know the story. There was a rumor in Russia they were getting a shipment of shoes. So everyone lined up by the shoe store in order to get shoes. Right? It was Russia. The guy comes out and says, we're not getting as many shoes as we thought. All Jews go home. So the Jews go home. He comes out and he said, we're not getting enough Jews. Whoever didn't serve in the military, all non-veterans, go home. And he comes out and says, we're not getting as many shoes as we thought. Whoever's not part of the Communist Party, go home. Finally, at the end of the day, he comes and says, guys, we're not getting any shoes. Go home. So the communist says, those Jews, they always get off lucky, right? So that's the way it is. We're blamed for everything, no matter. It doesn't make. I think we're missing over here. We got the wealthy, we got the rep of the non-Jews, hate the non-Jews, yeah. And no matter how crazy it is, look at text number 3. This is an article written by book by Phyllis Goldstein. And I don't know if you remember this. Right after 9/11, there was a conspiracy theory going around that who was behind the downing of the World Trade Center? Israel, the Mossad. Even though Al Qaeda came out and took credit. Text number 3. Conspiracy theories are really logical. It's not surprising that even as Al Qaeda took credit for the September 11 attacks, the group did nothing to stop a rumor claiming that the Jews were really responsible. The rumor alleged that Israel, specifically Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, was behind the plot and warned Jews not to go to work in the World Trade Center on the day of the attacks. On September 18th, an editor for the website known as the Information Times posted a message claiming that, quote, the terrorist government of Israel cannot be ruled out, end quote, as a suspect. The editor did not identify a motive or provide evidence in support of the allegation. In his words, he was simply raising, quote, a reasonable question. 5 days later, Al-Manar, a TV station based in Lebanon, stated that the Mossad had indeed warned 4,000 Jews who worked at the World Trade Center to stay home on September 11th. Within days, that rumor appeared in newspapers and electronic mailings listed around the world. People continued to believe the lie despite the fact that 18% of the known dead were identified in obituaries as Jews. It doesn't make sense. And we're going to see in the class, hate doesn't have to make sense. And hate is often, it's often contradictory. There's a story told in the Midrash. So the one of the worst Roman emperors, when I say worst, to persecute the Jews, was a guy named Hadrian. He was a very, very bad guy. He was around the year 120. He put down the rebellion. The temple was destroyed in the year about 68, 69 of the Common Era. 50 years later, there was a massive revolt, the Bar Kokhba revolt. He put down that revolt, and he put in place some very, very tough decrees against the Jews. So the Midrash tells us the story. He was standing there with his entourage, and a Jew walks by, and he greets him, "Hello, Emperor." And he says, "A Jew." He says, "Who are you?" He says, "A Jew." So a Jew should greet the emperor, cut off his head. Another Jew walks by, didn't say hello to the emperor. "Who are you?" Says, "A Jew." A Jew didn't greet the emperor, cut off his head. So his one of the senators said to him, he says, "You don't know what you're doing." Says, at one hand, you kill the guy for greeting you. On the other hand, you kill the guy for not greeting you. So he answered, "You want to tell the king what to do with those he hates?" When someone hates, you can talk yourself blue in the face. It doesn't have to make sense. There's an old joke. The premier of Poland after World War I, his name was Ignacy Paderewski, whatever it is. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. He was a known anti-Semite. So he goes to Woodrow Wilson. It's a World War I era joke, right? And he says, if you don't meet our demands, then people are going to be very, very upset. They're going to get drunk, and they're going to massacre the Jews. So Woodrow Wilson says, and what's going to happen if we do give in to your demands? Well, then people are going to be very happy. They're going to get drunk and going to go out and kill Jews. Right? That's kind of what it is. I'm going to show you a video now of a rabbi. His name is Rabbi Ziemba. He was a rabbi at the time of World War II. And you'll see text number 4 what he says about the absurdity, the backward logic of anti-Semitism. So watch the video about him, and then we'll discuss text number 4. I'm going to mute myself so the audio from the screen and my microphone don't cross. 1 second. And
on the east bank of the Vistula River, in the Warsaw suburb of Praga, a Jewish boy was born in 1883 and named Menachem, he who brings comfort. His father, Elazar Ziemba, died shortly after, and the boy was raised by his grandfather. He became rapidly known as a dazzling genius and formidable Torah scholar, corresponding with the best Torah minds of his era. Menachem Ziemba married at age 18. His wealthy father-in-law supported him for 20 years while he studied and put pen to paper, authoring over 10,000 pages of original Torah insights, including commentaries on Maimonides' magnum opus and on the Jerusalem Talmud, and 4 volumes of halachic responsa. His fame spread globally. He was offered rabbinical positions, including the office of the chief rabbi of Jerusalem, but he humbly shunned leadership. Leadership was thrust upon him in 1935 by order of the Grand Rabbi of Ger. The humble rabbi joined the Warsaw Rabbinate and proved his worth, becoming a world authority on Jewish law and a foremost spokesman for Polish Jewry. Before reaching age 40, Rabbi Ziemba was appointed honorary secretary to Moetzes Gedolei HaTorah, the Council of Great Torah Sages, populated by sages twice his age. In 1937, he twice addressed the full assemblage and was treated with awe. Then the Nazis arrived. Jewish Warsaw was reduced to a ghetto. 460,000 people were imprisoned in just 1.3 square miles. Starvation, disease, deportation, murder. Despite repeated offers of escape, Rabbi Ziemba refused to abandon his flock. To them, he was a rare pillar of comfort. As one of a handful of rabbis who survived in the ghetto until its final days, he rallied his desperate brethren with powerful messages of hope and determination. He recorded an insight into the nature of anti-Semitism before the war. In light of his subsequent experiences under Nazi depravity, his words ring with timeless poignancy. There are those who seek to identify legitimate causes for the hatred of Jews. However, reality has shown that there is no legitimate reason. Anti-Semitism has no justifiable cause. The haters simply choose to hate God's people. This is demonstrated by the fact that Jews are hated for being capitalists and also for being socialists. They are hated because they are overly ambitious and sharp-minded, and also because they are indolent and parasitic. They are hated because they are too religious and conservative, and also because they advance progressive and secular ideas. The reasons for this hatred are consistently contradictory and have not an ounce of logic behind them. Shortly before Passover, 1943, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising erupted. Amid furious fighting and flames, Rabbi Ziemba calmly conducted a Passover Seder as if nothing was amiss. But on the fifth day of Passover, April 24th, 1943, Rabbi Ziemba was gunned down by Nazi bullets. The community he shepherded with love and sacrifice came together at terrible risk to bury their beloved rabbi in a temporary grave. His family was deported to Treblinka. None survived. His lifetime of copious writings rose to heaven in the Warsaw fires. Hardly any of it survived. In 1958, his body was exhumed. Tens of thousands of people amassed, including an array of leading Jewish sages, to lay the heroic rabbi to eternal rest in dignity. Reality has proven that this righteous man was right. There is no legitimate reason for the hatred leveled in each generation against the innocent men, women, and children of the Jewish people.
All right, so the text number 4 was in the video. So this idea of the video is saying before that it's not logical, because when it's logic, when someone has an issue, you go to them and say, "What's the problem?" If it's a misconception, you talk to them and you work it out. When it's hate is not logical, and like he said. The Jews are the communists, and the Jews are the capitalists. The Jews don't work, and the Jews work too much. The Jews are too rich, and the Jews are too poor. The too religious, and the too. It doesn't make sense. Going back to the story of Egypt, the Jews lived in Egypt for over 100 years. They came down. Joseph was the first Jew to go down to Egypt. Well, not really. Abraham was the first Jew. But to live there, right? And he was the second to the king. He gave his life. He started when he was 30. He died when he was 110. That means he gave 80 years to work for the country. Then his brothers came and everything else. So there's over 100 years of Jews living in the country, contributing, paying taxes, contributing to the economy. Never an issue. One day, Paro says, maybe the Jews are going to rise up against us and kick us out of the country. Where did that fear come from? Totally illogical, totally irrational. It had no reason. Okay. Gray box was that on page 55. Yeah. Upon reading anti-Semitic slander and lies, so this is really the main point of tonight's class. We may be tempted to consider it sufficient to simply broadcast the correct information, right? Obviously, they're misinformed. So what do we have to do? Inform them. Well, this type of effort is beneficial, not going to solve the problem, because some haters simply refuse to allow themselves to be confused with facts. A second point that is clarified by the sheer absurdity of anti-Semitism is that anti-Semitism is a misnomer. A more accurate term, and this is what I said earlier, that we're going to use a different term, is evil. Or wickedness. Okay, so the first point of the gray box. So 2,000 years ago, Josephus Flavius tried number one. He said this guy, this Egyptian philosopher, had his facts all wrong. Obviously, he went to a bad website. He saw the wrong thing. So what am I going to do? I'm going to publish the facts. And then when the guy reads the facts, I was wrong. Now, here's the bad news. It didn't work 2,000 years ago. It hasn't worked 1,500 years ago. It hasn't worked. Why? Because people who believe in conspiracy theories, people who have a certain mindset. They don't care about the facts. And I'm not going to get political, but there are examples today and examples all the time. You can go to somebody and say, listen here's the facts, show them a piece of paper. They don't care. Look at text number 5. The woman, Devorah Lipstadt, wrote a great book, Anti-Semitism Here and Now. It's a terrific book. And she writes, it's hard, if not, sorry, I'm a little behind in my, okay, hold on. There you go. It's hard, if not impossible, to explain something that is essentially irrational, delusional, and absurd. That is the nature of all conspiracy theories, of which anti-Semitism is just one. Anti-Semitism is not the only conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy. Think about it. Why do some people insist the moon landing took place on a stage somewhere in the American West? Despite you can come to them with scientific fact, you can interview Buzz Aldrin and Nick Armstrong and all that, and they believe that why this was because they described the notion it's a cover up, the government, and if you're to provide these conspiracy theories with evidence that it really happened, they would have a priori dismissed, and we say, oh, you were part of the conspiracy. You're drinking the Kool-Aid. Here's a powerful third paragraph. To try to defeat an irrational supposition, especially when it's firmly held by its proponents, with a rational explanation, it's impossible. You're trying to fight illogical arguments with logic. Any information that does not correspond with the conspiracy theory's preferred social, political, or ethical narrative is ipso facto false. I'm guessing that's Latin. Social scientists have described such theories, you see it on your screen, as called a self-sealing quality that makes them particularly immune to challenge. So yes, your first impulse would be, okay, obviously these people are ill-informed, and that's why they're hardcore haters and all that. So what am I going to do if I show them I'm really a nice guy, and that really a Jew is not a socialist, a capitalist, or really a Jew is not a parasite, whatever it is, or then all their hate will melt away. But what they believe is not based in fact. Going back to Pharaoh, right? Wasn't based in fact. So in the story of Pharaoh had 3 ministers, 3 advisors. One of them was Jethro, one of them was Job, and one of them was Bilam, all famous 3 biblical characters. Jethro said, that's insanity. Why would you think all of a sudden that they're gonna rise up against you? What are you basing that fear on? It's an irrational fear. The same way your kid thinks a boogie monster is coming out of the closet. You're going to tell your kid there's no boogie monster? He believes there's a boogie monster. That's exactly the same argument. Jethro said to Pharaoh, what are you basing your fear on? It's irrational. Job didn't say anything. Bilam said, yeah, the Jews are a problem. You know what Jethro had to do? He had to run away from Egypt. He ran to the land of Midian. Why? Because when someone has hatred and irrational hate inside of them, what are you going to tell them? Right? To make sure Larry's awake. You're going to try to convince me that the Boston Red Sox they're in purity, right?
No,
Larry, are you with me?
Wait, I'm totally asleep.
Right? So yes, should we put out there the truth? Yes, it's important, and hopefully we'll keep some people away from anti-Semitic views. Yeah, there are some people who just don't know. I'll tell you a story. When I was in yeshiva in Miami, so my study partner was a gentleman from England, and Chabad has this program where we send yeshiva boys to neighborhoods and towns and villages that don't have a full-time rabbi, to bring mezuzot and books and tefillin, right, and to strengthen the Jewish community. So this story happened, I think, in the early 90s. Okay. The guy's walking this town in the middle of England, middle of nowhere, right? Small town. Guy comes over to him and says, "What are you?" So he says, "I'm a Jew." "No, you're not." So he says, "Excuse me?" He says, "Yes, I am." "No, you're not." He says, "Why do you say that?" "Because Jews have horns." This story happened in the early 90s. And the guy said, "No, I don't." And the guy was, "Oh my God." He just thought that. He was always taught, and he never, and he never met a Jew. So there are some people that we can change their opinion just based on fact. They're not bad people. They were just told that all Jews are, are bad. So there are some people, but to the hardcore haters, you're wasting it. Now, let's deal with the term anti-Semitism. Who invented the term anti-Semitism? Anti-Semitism was invented by an anti-Semite. Look at this. There's a book written, Dictionary of Anti-Semitism. Text number 6 on page 57. Robert Michael and Philip Rosen. He said this guy, Wilhelm Marr, German writer, political theorist, and agitator. He wrote, he founded the first anti-Semite league, organization devoted exclusively to promoting political anti-Semitism. Marr's organization reflected his secular racism, which existed inconsistently alongside his religious anti-Semitism. His self-proclaimed goal was to free Christianity from the yoke of Judaism. He coined the term anti-Semitism, which for him denoted his secular racial hatred for the Jews. He used anti-Semitism to make Jewish hatred seem rational, like it's another anti-fossil fuel, anti-something. So he made it into a movement. So the truth of the matter is, when we use the term anti-Semitism, first of all, it's not true. Because, for example, when you have people in the Middle East, right, in Gaza, or in Lebanon, that want to kill Jews, those are Semites also. So, first of all, it's not correct. That's number one. Number two, when you give it a term like anti-Semitism, it takes away its the sting, because like, what are you? What are you? You're anti this, and I'm anti that, and I'm anti some stuff, right? So one of the things that you're against, right? If you're a Republican, you're an anti-Democrat. If you're a Democrat, you're anti-Republican, right? So instead of calling yourself a socialist, I'm an anti-capitalist. Anti-Semitism. You're taking away sting. You know what it is? When you hate other people for no reason, it's evil. When if you say, if someone hates black people, we say the guy's a bad person. If we dress it up and saying, or you say, I don't hate black people, I'm a nationalist. Or what do they call themselves, right? The white nationalists, isn't that what they call themselves, right? Yeah. Right? It takes away, all right, I believe in the nation, right? That's wrong. It's evil. It's bad. If you hate another person, it's evil. It's bad. There's no way to dress it up. The problem is when we use terms, it's a common term, but in reality, if you look at text number 7, there's a story, just a text of a book of a diary, a Zichronot of memories, a diary. Of a woman in Germany who lived in Hamburg. Basically, in the story over there, these two guys in Hamburg killed a Jew for no reason. So they were tried, they were found guilty, and they were set to be executed. And the people of the community were very upset. You're going to go kill a Gentile? And he says, for nothing. That was their claim, for doing nothing. And they threatened to cause more damage. And the authorities in Hamburg said, if you do, there's going to be a strict punishment. But the point is, she writes over there that there was a commotion in Hamburg not seen in over 100 years over a man sentenced to death. The lives of the Jews were in danger and here's the important, due to rishus. Rishus means, where are we? Rishus means evil, wickedness. That's what it is. When you hate another person just because, that's not a political slogan. It's bad. It's evil. There's no other way. So the first thing you have to know is wrong. Wrong. It's it. It's not, oh, I believe in something. There's 100% wrong. So really what we should really be calling it is evil. Over. But I guess for the sake of the course, we'll call it anti-Semitism. But the real is evil. Okay. Page 58. We've established something we knew for a long time, that the anti-Semitism has been for around forever. And we've said that really there's no reason for it. The question is why? Why? Why the Jews? Right? Why the bicyclists? Why the Jews? What can explain existence? So you want to say that, okay, in this period, the Greeks were hated, and okay, now it's the Jews' turn, right? It's a cycle. But as far back as there's been Jews, there's been hate. I mean, Avram is called Avram the Hebrew. Ivri means the other side. Because he was on one side, everyone else was on the other side. Everyone was serving idols, and he was talking about this monotheism, this one God. Jews were always on the other side. So it's a multiple theories abound, many of which are worthy of discussion. The following analysis, we're going to talk about the story of Purim, because, like we said, story of Purim. Every story in the Torah is a prototype. It's a template. It's not just a story that happened. The story of Achashverosh, Esther, and Haman, the template for anti-Semitism and how to respond to it, amongst a template for other things. Perhaps more important than the explanation itself, or any explanation, is this is very important, is the psychological canvas on which the explanation is painted. And this is we're going to focus on the last sentence of the gray box that we're going to focus on, and this is the lesson we really, really have to drive home tonight. If your response to anti-Semitism is to gaze inward, blaming Jews or Judaism, that's a very big, very big problem. And that's something we're going to stop right now. We're going to stop blaming ourselves or Jews and Judaism for hate and anti-Semitism. Okay, let's before we get to what the Gemara says and everything, let's go to what common reasons for anti-Semitism. Text number 8. If you haven't read Rabbi Jonathan Sachs' books, Olav Shalom, I encourage. His stuff is tremendous, really, really good. He has a knack for taking controversial or deep topics and really explaining it beautifully. I have some of his books. It's great. I have a book of his. I recommend it to a bunch of people. It's called Not in God's Name, about religious violence. I read his book, Judaism in Israel. It's really, really good. So a lot of the things, in JLI, we just quote a snippet here and there. But a lot of these things, if you want good reading, you could buy these books. So text number 8 on page 60. Endless speculations about what the cause of anti-Semitism is. Some say it's a displaced fear, right? So meaning that you can't direct your fear at this person, so you'll direct it at another person because you know there's no risk for repercussion. Some give it a socio-political explanation. Jews were a convenient scapegoat for whenever there was economic resentment, social unrest, class conflict. Or other view it through the prism of culture. Jews were always the outsiders. And the us and there's them. Yet others note the concentration of anti-Semitism is because Judaism is the father of Christianity and Islam. And there's an old theory, Freud quotes it, the myth of Oedipus. Am I reading that correctly? The famous where we want to destroy the thing that gives us life. Huh?
Oedipus.
Thank you. Oedipus. So he says it would be strange indeed if such a complex phenomenon did not give rise to such a multiple explanation. So there are various reasons given, right? That they're portraying something that they're cheap, so they So they don't want to feel bad about themselves. Oh, the Jews are cheap, and then it makes them feel good about themselves. Oh, there are problems in the economy. Oh, it's the Jews' fault. And also there's the us and the them. My team, the other team, or they want to destroy where they came from. So, do any of these reasons resonate with you? Explanations? They say, okay, that's a good reason for does a blanket cover all edges? I've been doing a lot of talking. Let's see. You guys chime in here a little bit. No? Anyone? Yeah. Good enough reasons? No, Michael J doesn't like them. Anyone online?
I think
Good enough for you?
Yeah, I think the one constant between all of these, whether they're psychological terms, socio-political, et cetera, they all have one thing in common, and that has to do with a psychological misfiring in the neurons of some goyim.
You think that anti-Semitism is a like sort of like a chemical imbalance? They're all suffering from a little bit of
Yes,
sort
I
of
do.
insanity.
I think all of these have a component of psychological distress, and I think there's a certain population that have this, and they're drawn towards anti-Semitism because there's something wrong with them. Their wires are crossed.
Now, just to play the devil's advocate, would you say the same thing about other types of hatred, like racism against Black people, or what they do in the Sunnis against?
Could be.
That's interesting.
But I think to a much greater degree, this is all the psychological deficit in a subpopulation of goyim.
So Michael J can't hear you because I have the earphones on, so I'm going to say it. He's saying it's a psychological deficit. It's misfired of neurons, or I think I'll use the right term, that makes them in a small population of goyim. So one of the things I'm going to we'll touch on at the end is that Judaism does not believe that the goyim are all bad.
Sure.
It's one of the 13 principles of faith in the coming of Mashiach, as it says that God will remove the spirit of evil from the world. It doesn't say God's going to remove all the Gentiles from the world and it's only going to be Jews. That's not part of the Jewish belief. We believe that the Gentiles are going to be here when the coming of when Mashiach comes, and we believe that they have a role to play. So we're going to talk about there. So there's the element of the goy, okay, and there's the element of the goy that hates the yid. So let's get into it right now. Let's go back to the story of Purim. Okay, a quick review. I know it's been almost a year since Purim. What is it? 9 months? 10? 9 months in Purim. So Achashverosh had a wife Vashti. By a party, killed her. He got drunk and killed his wife. It says the Gemara calls Achashverosh a fool. Why? Because he killed his wife because of his prime minister, and he killed his prime minister because of his wife. So he got drunk by a party, had his wife killed, and then he appoints a new queen named Esther, who has no idea she's Jewish. And then a while later, he appoints a new prime minister, Haman hates the Jews, goes to Achashverosh with a plan to wipe out all the Jews. Achashverosh goes along with the plan, and Esther comes out and says he's Jewish, and Haman is threatening her life, and Achashverosh gives the Jewish people permission to fight back, to defend themselves, and Achashverosh sees Haman for what he is, a threat, has him hanged. Jewish people fight back, and now we have a holiday, right? So you know the joke. Hitler goes to people see the future, and he tells them you're going to die on a Jewish holiday. So he says, which Jewish holiday? He says, Purim, Pesach, I don't know. Whenever you die, that'll be the Jewish holiday, right? Right. So let's go back to the story of Haman's plot, right? Haman wants to destroy the Jews, all right? And if you see in the story in chapter 3 of the book of Esther, Haman goes over to Achashverosh and says, I am going to give you 10,000 loaves of silver in place of the taxes the Jews contribute to the king's coffer. And you give me the signet ring and let me destroy the Jews. Achashverosh says, keep the silver. Here's the ring, do to the Jews whatever you want. So Haman hates the Jews, we know. Achashverosh also hates the Jews. We don't say Achashverosh hemming and hawing. Achashverosh says, please, get rid of them. So over here we have two anti-Semites, Haman and Achashverosh. And the Gemara says they're not the same anti-Semites. They're not the same. They're two different types of anti-Semites. Look at text number 9. This is the Gemara. It says an example, a parable, to get insight into the respective positions. So one guy had a field with a big ditch. Another guy had a field with a big mound. And the guy said, "Oh, I wish I can buy that dirt to fill my ditch." Other guy says, "I wish I can pay the guy to I can put my dirt into that ditch." And they meet each other, and the guy says, "I'll pay you for the dirt." The guy says, "Pay me for the dirt, please. Take it from me for free." Okay, so Haman is compared to the guy with the ditch. Achashverosh is compared to the guy with the mound. Now, let me ask you a question. Do we need the Gemara to give us an analogy where you didn't understand that Haman and Achashverosh were anti-Semites? Why was the Gemara giving us this parable to explain what kind of anti-Semite Haman was and what kind of anti-Semite Achashverosh was? They both wanted the Jews gone. So when the Gemara is giving us a story, it's telling us something. And I don't understand. What's Haman over here trying to fill up? Haman was trying to get rid of the Jews. Shouldn't Haman be compared to the guy with the mound? Right? He was trying to get rid of the Jews. Why does the Gemara compare Haman to the guy with the ditch? Right? It should be vice versa. Okay. So remember I said before that Achashverosh was a fool. He was we see in the story of Esther, he's worse than a politician. He switches his mind, right? Back and forth. Flip-flop, right? So Achashverosh is the superficial anti-Semite. Full of superficial anti-Semite. He hates Jews, but why does he hate Jews? He hates Jews because they're different. Right? He sees Jews as a nuisance. Right? I want to go out, and the Jews they stick out, and the Jews they have their own laws of kosher, and they have their own holidays. So if you look at the Gemara, the things that Haman told him, it says that if a fly lands in a Jew's wine, we take out the fly, you can drink the wine. But if a Gentile touches the wine, he can't drink the wine. What? No wine. Achashverosh, who was a perennial drinker, that was like, what? Can't drink wine? And so Achashverosh is an idiot. He looks at the Jews as a pimple. They're a nuisance. So let's get them. Let's get rid of them. Right? It's typical. We'll compare to typical racism or xenophobia. Right? I'm white. You're black. I'm Gentile. You're Jewish. You're different from me. I don't like you. Why? Because you're different. If you join my team, you put on the jacket with the letters, then no, they weren't on the same team. It's not. I was talking to somebody. In the old days when players didn't move from one team to the other team, you didn't just root for the team, you rooted for the players, and you hated the other player. Because these days a guy could be in the Boston Red Sox and come to the New York Yankees, right? And now you're all conflicted inside. But it used to be you hated the players, on the other team. But that's not real hate. You just hate the guy because he's wearing a different uniform, right? So just like the owner of the field wants to get rid of his mound, Achashverosh wants to get rid of the Jews. So, in a way, this is kind of even a worse type of anti-Semitism. Because what's the Jew supposed to do? You hate me because I'm Jewish. What do you want me to be? The only thing to do You can't explain it away. It's not to be here, right? Like Golda Meir said, they don't want us to be in Jerusalem. They don't want us to be in Germany. They just don't want us to be. Right? You remember that news reporter, Helen Thomas? Helen Thomas was an old lady. She sat in the front row, right? And we had the guy talk here years and years ago, who asked her the question. So he asked her, what do you think about the Jews? Oh, I said they should get the hell out of Israel. He said, where should they go? Back home. He said, where's home? Go back to Germany. He said, but they were all killed in Germany. She lost her job because of that. I think she worked in the New York Times or something, right? Yeah. So that's the Achashverosh anti-Semite. Haman is much deeper. Haman was a very educated person. Haman was a very intelligent person. Haman even knew things from the Torah. Haman sees the Jews as a ditch. Look at Haman's life. Haman had everything. He had a beautiful big house. He had a beautiful family, wife, and a bunch of kids, which back then was, right? He had all the money. You know, could you imagine the guy had in his own bank account 10,000 loads of silver, which was enough money to cover, I don't know how many years of taxes for the entire Jewish people who lived in 127 countries. Great how rich this guy was. He was like the Jeff Bezos, you know, back then. And not only that, he was a prime minister. Achashverosh commanded that when he walked on the street, everyone, the king's ministers and servants, everyone had to bow down to him. Right? He had it all. What's his problem? Look at text number 10. My problem is when I see a Jew, I got nothing. He looks at the Haman. Haman looks at Mordechai, and he sees that even though I have everything, I have nothing. Look at the last line of text number 10. But all of this means nothing to me. Each time I see Mordechai, the Jew, sitting at the palace gate, everyone's bowing down to him. One guy is not bowing down to you, and he has it all, and he's all up in a fit. Why? What's bothering Haman so much? No? Chime in, Chevra. No. Drawing a blank. Anybody?
Haman is bothered because everyone is not bowing down to him. He is egocentric, and he's got to be the all great, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, etc. And if you're not bowing down to me, I'm gonna hate you.
So I'm just gonna repeat it out loud for Michael J. That Haman had this. He wanted like absolute domination. It says about Stalin once killed a guy like Georgia. The guy spoke against the government. They said, "What do you care about some idiot in Georgia?" But he knew if a guy over there is not, with me, then that's interesting. That's interesting. He was an egomaniac. They tell a story. It reminded me. This refusnik wanted to immigrate to the United States. So they asked him, I don't understand. The United States and Russia in the Constitution both guarantee freedom of speech. What are you running to the United States for? So he said, yeah, but in the United States, you have freedom after speech. Right? So, exactly. So it's like this. Haman realized, the Rebbe explains like this. Haman realized, yeah, I have everything. I have a house, I have money, but all those things are there to serve me. All about me, making me feel good. Here's a guy, here's a person, Mordechai, who lives his life, his life is more than just self-preservation. He's committed to something greater than himself. He's committed. So when he follows Hashem's command, so he'll do it even if it means inconvenience of himself, even if it means giving up his own life. So he can say, I can have everything, but I can't have what he's got. You know, there's a story, there's a guy, Akiva, I told the story in show before. This guy, Akiva, I forgot what it is. He's from South Africa. He's a big motivational speaker. Became religious. Microsoft wanted to hire him to give the keynote for their annual conference. And so he says, okay, whatever it is. I think so. He says it's Shabbos. Sorry, can't come. They go back to not Jobs, the Gates. Jobs is the other guy, other company. And they go back to Gates and said, oh, he's probably paying hardball. Offer him 10,000, 25,000, whatever it was. So he says, no, I'm not for sale. It's Shabbos to Shabbos. So they moved the keynote address to Sunday. And supposedly Gates said, I have all the money in the world, but I can't buy Shabbos. Right? I can't buy a Shabbos. Haman understands that you can have everything. But when you sit down with your family for a meal and you say, I don't care what's happening, Shabbos, or when you dedicate yourself to something greater than yourself, look, I mean, we see it now. Look at all the celebrities. They have everything. They have fame. They have money. They're all miserable. They're all miserable. I told the story before also. Rabbi Shorts was a shliach, the first shliach to UCLA. Went there in the 60s. And he had a chavrusa, he had a study session with many actors. And he told the story he learned with Adam Sandler. And Adam Sandler, I guess they got into conversation on money, happiness. So Adam Sandler says, you think I'm happy? He said, excuse my French, he said, I'm effing miserable. You would think these guys have everything. Haman walked by Mordechai and he saw that Mordechai has something. He looked at Mordechai and he saw that Torah teaches that every human being, Jew and Gentile, is created for a purpose. And the purpose is not to get more stuff, not to have a bigger house, and 10,000 loaves of silver, 20,000, 30,000, whatever it is, go to the edge of space. That's not what it is. So when Haman sees a Jew, he's reminded of the emptiness in his life. He has that gaping hole in the middle of his beautiful field. So what's his plan? Get rid of the hole. No Jews, no hole. Right? Hitler said the same thing. Supposedly, Hitler said the same thing. Says that he said, conscience is a Jewish invention. It's a blemish, like circumcision has to be removed from the world. They saw Jews as a blemish. You get rid of them, then I don't have. Then I fill my ditch. Now, that's a choice Haman made. Haman could have said, here's people living a life of purpose, a life of transcendence, a life of giving back. Let me learn more about them. Let me see what it's all about. No one, and this is why, maybe, talking about the chemical imbalance theory. A person who hates, they're making a choice. They're making a choice. It's not, I don't know that I agree that a person has no choice with the hate. No, I don't think, I don't think any person is born hating Jews. You think Hitler was born hating Jews? I don't think in the crib. I mean, it's around the culture, and even if you're not taught to, you're only raised around people who are like you. But you can still make the choice. Well, let's go back to the biblical story, okay? Paro sinned a lot, and he did terrible things to the Jewish people. And it says God hardened his heart. Now the question is, if God hardened his heart, how are you punishing him? Because God hardened his heart, meaning it made it harder for him to repent, but it didn't make it impossible. I mean, ultimately, even if you see a guy who's doing something right, you have the choice to say, something, I want to emulate that guy. I want to go learn about what that guy is doing right. Instead of Haman coming along and saying, I'm just gonna wipe them out. So every hater of whatever it is, of another person. I mean, now we're talking about hatred of Jews, but is making a choice that I choose to hate that person. And going back, and this is really the most fundamental concept, it's very important to really drive this point home. It's not because of anything you are doing. So many times Jews have thought, oh, the reason why there's hatred of Jews is because Jews are too successful, or Jews are too Jewish. So the word I guess we'll use tonight is we internalize that hatred. We look inward, because we're taught, right? If everyone's picking on you, then obviously you're the problem. I remember when I was a kid, I'd come home, I say, "Oh, I got in trouble today. Why? What happened?" No, nothing happened. The Rebbe just for no reason gave me a punishment, kicked me out of class. My father was like, "Yeah, really?" The Rebbe woke up this morning and said, "Today I'm going to kick Mordechai and Druzy out of class." Does that make sense? And even I had to say, that doesn't make sense, right? But that's kind of a subconscious complex we have. Oh, if everyone's hating the Jews for so long, then obviously, we got to look in the mirror. Obviously, it has something to do with us. The point that we're saying tonight is it's nothing to do with you. And no matter what you do, and trust me, everything's been tried. The Jews have tried to be, blend in, doesn't work, right? They've tried everything to be to placate and to satisfy every hater. The idea is, if you could turn it inward, then it becomes problematic and wrong. It's very important to remember, keep in mind, to identify the hate with the one who's doing the hating, with the hater. Don't think it's because of you. I'm going to read to you a paragraph from a website called Stopbullying.gov. Okay, when a child is bullied on the playground, we don't think that the picked on child should self-blame, change his or her his personality or behavior. The victim is not the cause of the bullying. The starting point of the problem is within the bully. Bullying is often a result of the bully's low self-esteem, feeling threatened and insecure. He finds esteem by demonstrating his superiority to others and by making others feel miserable. If the bullied child starts contemplating how to change to appease the bully, he's pursuing an endless task that will likely bear no fruit. Same exact things over here. If Jewish people are going to think the reason why is because something we're doing wrong, and right back at square zero. Let's go back to Rabbi Sachs, text number 11, page 64. Jews must fight anti-Semitism, but never internalize it. It's easier said than done. If you're hated, it's natural to believe that you are hateful and the defect lies in you. It really does. Hate exists in the mind of the hater, not the person of the hated. Jews have faults, and Judaism is a religion of self-criticism and repentance. Jewish people do things wrong, but their faults have nothing to do with those of which they are accused of by their enemies. Anti-Semitism tells us about anti-Semites, not Jews. One of the mistakes made by good, honorable, and reflective Jews was to believe that since Jews were hated because they were different, they should try to, as hard as possible, not to be different. Some converted, others assimilated, yet others reformulated Judaism to eliminate, as far as possible, all that made Jews and Judaism distinctive. When these things failed, as they did, not only in 19th century Germany and Austria, but also in 15th century Spain, some internalized this failure. Thus was born the tortured psychology known as Jewish self-hatred. So there's been three different, really, internalizations and responses to anti-Semitism. Some say, what we got to do? We have to just take off the shell of Judaism. We're going to become, instead of Cohen, we're going to become Jones. We give up on Torah. We give up on Shabbos. We give up on kosher. We totally blend in. Some say, we shouldn't call ourselves the chosen people. The Reconstruction movement, the fathers of the Reconstructionist movement, in 1945, say you're not allowed to use that term. The quote, the best way to answer the charge that the chosen people doctrine has been the model for theories of natural and racial superiority. Because we call ourselves the chosen people, we're inviting hatred. It's insanity. It's others argue that you should encourage intermarriage. Jews would be more acceptable. We're too exclusive. That's another idea of internalizing hatred. The problem is with you. If I make it in with the club, then I'll be accepted. So we shouldn't be too Jewish. Look at history. You don't have to go that far back. Look at the 20th century, 19th century. We don't have to go that far. I mean, every century you can see examples of this, and every century or so, the movement comes up with a new name. It's been tried. It has not worked. It didn't work in Germany. It didn't work in Spain. It didn't work in France. It didn't work. You can go on. In fact, it's interesting that historically Jews were pressured to convert to Christianity in Spain, right? And then so they converted, but then they were oppressed because they weren't really accepted by the church. So what did they do? They said, "The heck with it. We'll go back to Judaism." Here we converted we thought we'd be accepted, by the group, but now we're not. So they said, we might as well go back. So were the intentions nice? Were the intentions good ones? Yeah, there's well-meaning Jews, but they were looking in the wrong direction. Instead of looking at the people doing the hating, they were looking inside. So anytime you find yourself looking and asking yourself why, the answer is not because of you. It's not because of the Jewish people. The concept, the lazy answer. If only we changed A, B, and C. That's been disproven by history, over and over and over again. It just doesn't work. Like I say, you see on the screen, hate is in the mind of the hater, not in the person, right? Historically, by the way, when the Jews came east and they fled France and Germany, and they came to Russia and Poland, they hated the Jews even before they got there. They didn't even know who Jews were. We're talking about in the 1500s. They hated the Jews even before they got there. So it has nothing to do. There's no why. It just is. Where are we? We're on page 65, right? Jews have long open identity. Jews have long struggled with the question how they ought to be how open they ought to be with their Jewishness. Some felt that it should be private, and because if you're too Jewish, you're gonna invite anti-Semitism. So you have to minimize it. The following texts make the argument for the opposite. This is a Chabad class, so you're never going to hear anything over here say to be less Jewish. So on text number 12, page 66 is a story I've told a million times. Rabbi Twersky, I heard the story. He was on a plane. I guess it was on a bus. Where he came, he's wearing his long black coat, and he was a chassid. And the guy came over to him and said, in Yiddish, you're a shanda, you're a disgrace, and because of you're so sticking out like a sore thumb, you're bringing anti-Semitism. And he says, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand your verbiage." He says, I'm not Jewish, I'm Amish." The guy said, "Oh, you're Amish. I'm so sorry. I have to tell you, how I'm so proud of you people for preserving your traditions." And then all of a sudden, Rabbi Twersky breaks out in a smile and says in Yiddish, "If I was Amish, you're proud. I'm Jewish, you're ashamed." And unfortunately, it's a very, very common theme. In fact, there was a gentleman, he was an author, his name is Yehuda Leib Gordon. He wrote a very, very famous line, which became the slogan for the Haskalah movement and later used in 20th century. It says, "Tihi Yehudi beveisecha, ish beveisecha Yehudi, ish beveisecha Yehudi beveisecha," which means be a Jew at home and a person outside. He's outside, act like everyone else, and inside he could be as Jewish. Don't flaunt Don't flaunt your Judaism. In fact, just a couple months ago, I forgot. Remember which politician said that Jews should not wear a yarmulke outside. They should cover. They should wear a hat. This is the United States, New York City, and you understand that's liberty. So Jews belong in U.S. They belong in Canada. If the answer is yes, if a Jew can say that I can live in the United States, there's no precondition how I have to live in the United States. It's a free country, isn't it? If I have to leave my Judaism, if I have to check my Judaism, if I have to tuck my tzitzis into my pants or not wear a yarmulke, make sure I wear a cap. I can't put a mezuzah on the exterior of my house. Then that's not a free country. If that's the argument, too much Judaism is going to cause anti-Semitism, then it's not a free country. That means not everybody's welcome in this country. Belonging to a society doesn't mean if I welcome you into society, I don't say, listen, you can come, but you have to dress a certain way. If you say that a Jew can walk around his yarmulke and tzitzis, have his mezuzah on his door, right? Whatever it is, that means that's an open society. That is an accepting society. That's what that's what it means. And not only that, if we're comfortable saying that Jews can walk around with yarmulke and tzitzis, then we're not the only minority around here. There are other minorities. So I forgot who it said. The Jews are the canary in the mine. We're the test for the world society. You think hatred starts and stops with the Jews? Historically, it's been proven it's never like that. When I'll give you an example, a modern day example. When the Palestinians started killing the Jews, right? Munich, and before that, you know what the world's reaction was? The Jewish problem. It's not our problem. They're killing the Jews. They hate the Jews. It's not our problem. You think it stopped there? No. Right? You had the Beirut, the Marines, I think in 82, 83, right? Right? They drove a truck into the army base. I think it was 82, 83. Right. But hate, because hate is illogical, doesn't stop. Oh, I only hate that person. You hate the other. So if we can show that Jewish people can act like proud Jews according to our faith in a society, that doesn't only benefit the Jews; it benefits everybody. So there is no reason to hide. The way to fight hate is not to be quiet about it. It's to be open about it. To be proud of who you are. Look at Barry Weiss, who was a columnist, I think, for the New Yorker, the New York Times. She writes text number 13. She used to hide her Magen David, but after the Pittsburgh attack, we just had the Yahrzeit. So now I wear it outside, even if I'm the only Jew in the room. The show of pride has become important to me. I want people to know that I'm unafraid. This is the example set by Mitchell Leschner during his middle school graduation. Even though the kid doesn't usually wear a yarmulke, he wanted to show everyone that he's not afraid, and no matter what, we're still here. But you know what the unfortunate thing is? The truth is, too often we wait for a negative occurrence. Oh, now I'm going to wear my Magen David. Now I'm going to wear my yarmulke. Let's not let the anti-Semites define when we're going to be proud Jews. We got to walk around with Judaism and wear it on our sleeve. So Friday afternoon, now we just changed the clock. Friday afternoon, don't be embarrassed to say, I gotta leave. Why? Shabbos is starting. Shabbos Friday night. I have dinner with my family. That's it. Religious. Don't say, I have a meeting. No, it's the afternoon. I gotta daven mincha. Right? Now I have to stop 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I have to daven mincha. A few Sundays ago, we showed the video about Rabbi Feller went to visit this big professor, Belville Green. And in the middle of the meeting, Belville Green was not religious at the time. He gets up to daven mincha. So in the beginning, he thought this guy's Meshuggah. Here he has a meeting. He was a big astrophysicist, whatever, professor. And now he's davening mincha. But then he thought to himself, here's a guy he's not afraid to say it as it is. So if we don't cower, if we don't back down, we help the world embrace the dignity of difference. Every human being, Jew, Gentile, man, woman, child, was created in the image of God. But God purposely didn't create everyone the same, because God wants us to find the God in everyone. God wants us to find the spark of divinity in every single person. So by saying everyone has to be the same, by saying everyone has to be the same, by saying that if you're not like me, then I have a problem, or by telling yourself, if I blend in, that's going to stop hate. No, by being proud different, we're telling people, not just for us Jewish people, for everybody, Black people, Asian people, Rohingya people, whatever it is, Sunni, Shiite, whatever it is, we're telling everybody that they're different, and that's okay. It's okay. People have different ways in life, and we love them because they're different. Let's look at Cecil Roth, text 14, symbol against uniformity, page 67. In this fact, people lay the greatest service of the medieval Jew to mankind. It was a period when authority was triumphant in the intellectual sphere, when thought was circumscribed even more than practice, when uniformity had established itself, not as an accident, but as principle throughout European life. Had this state of affairs continued unchallenged, progress, scientific as well as philosophical, would have been impossible. The mere fact that the Jew existed and that he preserved the habit of independent thought helped to save the world from this menace. And it was impossible even for the least original mind to fail to realize that in the Jewish quarter there existed a class as intelligent, at least as other men were, who yet did not believe as other men, who possessed literature and beliefs and practice which were not like the rest of the world, and refused to pay even lip service to prevailing ideas. This very fact saved the world from accepting uniformity finally as a natural thing. It stimulated students and thinkers to realize the existence of other spheres to conquer over and above those which were delineated from the pulpit. From time to time, Europe shook off its lethargy and began to re-examine for itself, as well as human thought, the propinquity of the Jew was in part responsible. The proximity of the Jew was responsible. So he's saying the very fact that Jews existed in the Middle Ages, and although the whole world, the Christian Europe, that was unanimous, and the church ruled thought, the Jews were saying, no, that's what you say, and we have our own opinion, and we're going to do things our way. That helped bring about the Renaissance and helped bring about Europe out of the Dark Ages. Not everyone to think exactly the way it is. So, as we're coming to a close, the fact is that outward Jewish posture and outward Jewish expression helps in reducing anti-Semitism, helps in reducing this concept of wickedness. Where do we see it? Well, let's go back to the story of Purim. Achashverosh hated the Jews. That doesn't end, by the way. Achashverosh doesn't become a lover of the Jews. So Esther comes and says, I'm Jewish. So why did Achashverosh all of a sudden change his mind? He hated the Jews. He agreed that the Jews should be destroyed. Esther says, I'm Jewish. So what? Let's look at text number 15. The Rebbe explains like this. The Rebbe had this talk in 1969. He says, all that Esther had to do was to prove that the conclusion presented by Haman was false. Haman told the king, it's not in the king's interest to let them remain. It's not true. She told the king, it is true that the nation is different. Haman said the Jewish people are different and they're scattered. Esther doesn't argue that point. Jewish people are different. Nevertheless, despite the fact that they're different, you can see it's not in the king's interest. To the contrary, it's the uniqueness of the Jews that make them a positive quality. This response is succinctly captured in the words of Esther spoken to Achashverosh. May my life be given to me in my petition and my people in my request. The Haman's claim that letting the Jews live was against the king's interest. Esther said, you should realize that this is the nation. Remember the story? Achashverosh didn't just pick Esther. He had a whole contest. You know how long the contest went on for? 4 years. Every day, he spent 24 hours with one woman. A night and a day. So do the math. 365 times 4. It's a lot of people. Right? And there were thousands of other people. Who did he choose? Esther. So she says to him, why did you choose me? Because I'm unique. But why am I unique? Because I'm a Jew. I'm not happen to be a unique person who happens to be a Jew. No, I'm unique because I'm a Jew. Because of my people. So he said, if so, you have in front of you evidence, the entire complaint is without basis. Haman's complaint to Parai, Achashverosh, is that it's not in the king's interest. Here, you're going to go and kill these people who you know yourself are unique. Achashverosh agreed. He was familiar with Esther's superior qualities and exemplary behavior. What he learned from her conduct was reflective of the conduct of the Jewish people, my people, and was left with one question: who in their right mind would seek to destroy people that produces individuals as good as Esther? You could only be an evil and dangerous person. Haman wasn't out for the betterment of the kingdom, which is true. Haman was only out for himself. Haman actually wanted to have Achashverosh killed. Haman wanted to be king. So he thought that him and Esther are going to team up and kill Achashverosh. So that's the idea that Esther is bringing over here, showing Jewish identity. So showing Jewish identity, meaning not only that you have good qualities, you're a nice person and an ethical person and a kind person, and yada yada yada. You say, and it's okay to say this. The Torah tells me, or my Jewish upbringing taught me to be honest, or I am the person I am because of what the Torah tells me. So you are who you are because of the Torah. And when we act in an openly Jewish way, that doesn't invite anti-Semitism. It actually rejects it. So we need everyone to realize that the people who we are is because of our upbringing, because of what we taught. Now, there was a story. I'll give a modern example. This guy name was Muhammad Dajani. He was born in 1946 in Jerusalem, and he was a Palestinian, and he was a professor, and he was a rabbi, anti-Semite, and he was a senior Fatah operative. Anyway, in 2014, he was a professor in Quds University. He took a group of Palestinian boys or kids to Auschwitz, and he was fired. And so now he's against anti-Semitism. He's fighting hatred of Israel. So they asked him in an interview in 2019 what made the change. Look at text number 16, page 72. Or overtime already. Said I started going with my father to Hadassah Hospital for chemotherapy. To my shock, look at that. The doctors, nurses, they're nice people. And my father would bring the fruit, the flowers, and chocolate. And I noticed that in the hospital, the Palestinians also received treatment. Everything I heard was not true. The Jewish people were just acting nice and good. Why? Because that's what the Torah said. And I realized if they're acting that way because that's what their upbringing is, then these people can be so bad. Page 73. So when exploring the rationale of or motivation for Jew hatred, it's important for the explanation to include the possibility for change. And here's going back to what I said before. Even a Haman has a choice, and he can change. For the Jewish prophets and ancient scholars insisted, the anti-Semitism will eventually cease altogether. So here's, everything in the Torah has a positive. Okay. Remember I said before, Achashverosh in a way is worse than Haman. The fact that Haman, the anti-Semite like Haman, feels an emptiness, it's a good thing. We want people to look at a Jew and say, I wish I could be like him. I wish I can have something in my life that's greater than me. We want people to have that feeling. That's a good thing. Now, what we don't want is for them to say, okay, I'll just get rid of the Jew. That's something we're working toward. So people, the truth of the matter is society wants direction. Society wants instruction. Society wants someone to say, this is the right thing to do, and this is the wrong thing to do. We all have that emptiness inside of us that we want to go to sleep at the end of the day and feel like we accomplished something. Everybody knows, this is not a Jewish ideal. Everybody knows after 120 years that one person is lying in his deathbed thinking, oh, I wish I made more money in my life. Everybody wants to be remembered for something good. I mean, and everybody knows what that good is. So we want people to have that emptiness. You want people to have that that ditch, but that's a redeemable quality. So even a person like Haman, can be channeled to do to do good. So evil doesn't exist on its own. We said evil is corruption of something positive, right? Haman had that emptiness. Instead of channeling it the right way, he did it the wrong way. Good is we take that quality and in the picture, the nuclear energy, and we use it for good. But don't be embarrassed. Don't back down. It says in the Shema, "V'dibarta bam." V'dibarta bam means don't stammer, don't hesitate. When someone says, "Are you the chosen people?" You better believe it. Chosen to teach the world what it means to live a fulfilling life. That's what it means. Like the prophet Yeshaya says in text number 17, page 73, when it says in the messianic prophecy that the wolf will lie with the lamb and the leopard will lie with the goat. The Jewish people are the lamb, the goat, and the nations of the world who were the predators, who in the past were so wicked against the Jewish people. Now everyone, in the words of Ron the King, everyone will get along. There's gonna come a time where they're gonna come and listen and say, teach us what it means to live a good life. Now the way we get there is not to back down and not to hard at Judaism. The way we get there is to be proud of who we are, to wear Judaism on the sleeve, especially now the story of Hanukkah, right? So when Mashiach comes, that void will be the void will be fulfilled. How do we do this? We do it by inspiring others and being very, very open. This lesson comes from the Torah, the book, a guide for all mankind. I'll end up with one story. When the Alter Rebbe was in prison, he was in prison for spreading Judaism, Chassidus. So came into a cell, a Russian minister. He was an education minister, and he was very, very well read. And he says, Rebbe, I want to ask you a question. So it says in the Torah that Hashem asked Adam after he ate from the tree of knowledge. He says, "Where are you?" Doesn't God know where Adam is? So the Alter Rebbe started giving the minister Rashi's explanation. So the minister says, "I know Rashi's explanation. He was well educated. I want to hear the Rebbe's explanation." So the Rebbe says, "Do you believe the Torah is eternal and applies to every person, Jew, Gentile, and every time?" The minister thought for a moment. He said, "I do." The Rebbe smiled and said, "Okay. God is asking Adam. God is asking Adam, Ayeka, where are you? What are you doing with your life? What are you accomplishing? What good are you doing in this world? You live a certain amount of years, months, and days." And he said the exact age of the minister. What have you done with your life? That's what God is asking. What are you accomplishing? Are you like Haman getting more stuff? or you are having a positive contribution to society. When you go to a person and you say, there's no reason to hate. We're on the same team here. So it's like in the baseball team, there's 9 guys on the field. And football, 11 guys. Everyone has their own role to play. Right? You can be the quarterback without the offensive line, whatever it is, right? You can't have a team. Jews and Gentiles, we're all on one team. When you go and you say, let me be clear, the Torah gives us a role for you and for me. There's no reason to hate, but we can't back down. As I say in Yiddish, Shem zichnet. Don't be embarrassed. When God's asking, no, where are you? We have to be able to answer that call. As what are you doing with your mission in life? I think this is the last slide, and now we're going to go to the key points. Before we go to the key points, any questions? Wow, no questions. Good. Okay, so I'm going to mute myself so the audio doesn't conflict. Next week we're back. We can come in person. Tuesday, I'm going to upload the class to YouTube. I'm also going to send out a synopsis of the class. Thank you so much for joining us. Send it out. Have all the people join us. And if you want, you can definitely send us questions via email, just in case you're embarrassed.
Lesson 2. No apologies. 1. The absurd and contradictory claims of anti-Semites have persisted for millennia. Attempting to refute these conspiracy theories may keep some people away from anti-Semitism, but it has proven to be a futile endeavor against hardcore haters. 2. The term anti-Semitism sounds more like a theory and fails to convey that this phenomenon is actually evil wickedness. 3. Much has been said about the root cause of anti-Semitism. One approach sees it resulting from an inner void due to the lack of a true sense of purpose in life. The Jew represents a commitment to living for a higher purpose and dedication to the mission given to humanity by the world's creator. Anti-Semites wish to obliterate their inner emptiness that they are reminded of when encountering the Jew. 4. Hatred exists in the mind of the hater, not the hated. We must avoid internalizing anti-Semitism and imagining that changing elements of our Jewish heritage will solve anti-Semitism. 5. Jews and other minorities cannot be expected to be bifurcated people, severing themselves from their identities in the public sphere. For a minority to have rights in a given place means that it can have a public presence. Being open about our Jewish identity benefits Jews and other minorities. 6. For some potential haters, the best antidote against stumbling into anti-Semitic views is knowing Jews who are upright and of noble character, and noticing that this goodness is linked to their Jewish identity, upbringing, and way of life. To have this influence, we must be open about our Jewish identity. 7. A Jewish explanation for anti-Semitism must allow for the possibility of change, because the Jewish prophets insisted in God's name that anti-Semitism will eventually cease altogether. 8. We can reduce anti-Semitism by teaching the world to avoid an inner void, by embracing God's mission for all humanity.
Okay, last thing, number 1. Next week we're going to talk about the hatred or is criticism of the state of Israel, anti-Semitism, and why Israel is in the center of so much politics. Also, last thing, I want to invite you guys after the end of the lesson. You'll see a map there of anti-Semitic events. Starting. What page is that? What page? 76, 77. It's like 4 or 6 pages there of different books which chronicle anti-Semitic events. You can read up. All right, guys, have a great week. Thank you for joining us. Rav Mordechai. Yeah.
You said next week in class. Are you still going to Zoom?
Yes.
Okay,
For the reason.
thank you. You're too far away for us to come.
Oh, I know. No, especially the horse and wagon, you know, is, yeah, I know, I get it.
No, it's a bicycle. It's got a flat tire.
There you go. I know a guy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You bet. All right. Take care. All the best.
Thanks, Rabbi.